Big thanks to Kamada Joe for sponsoring this episode.
Have you ever tasted a steak dry aged in whiskey? It could be the perfect steak. Let's find out. Wow, look at this. A mummified steak. This has been dry aging for 40 days in whiskey. I'm not much of a whiskey drinker myself. I like beer. But that's beside the point. The point is that whiskey, specifically whiskey, is aged in oak barrels, or at least has a strong oak barrel flavor to it. And that gives a beautiful hint of flavor to meat. At least that's what I think, because this is going to be my first dry aging project. And it all started 40 days ago when my butcher Van de Zee showed up with these beautiful pieces of meat. This is called a T-bone. It's a center cut of the cow from the back, and on top sits the loin, otherwise known as entrecôte. It's a beautiful texture of meat. It's very tender and tasty. And don't forget about that fat cap. That fat cap is very important when dry aging. The same goes for the bones that sit on this T-bone. They actually have an important job to do, and that's to protect the meat from over dry aging. And this is what I'm gonna put on that steak. Jack Daniel's No. 7, made in Lynchburg, Tennessee, is one of my favorite whiskeys to use for cooking because the flavors of this whiskey are very pronounced. The oak barrel flavor that I'm talking about really pops in this whiskey. And that's a flavor that blends really well with barbecue. I'm gonna brush this whiskey onto my steak to get it nice and moist. Of course, it's not gonna stick the way I want it to and help with the dry aging process unless we wrap it in a cheesecloth. A cheesecloth is basically a piece of cloth that has no flavor and in the past was used to make cheeses. Now once I wrap this all up, I'm gonna put more whiskey on it. And the cheesecloth is gonna help keep that steak moist for a longer period of time and give off more whiskey flavor to the steak. Once the steak is wrapped up, it's time to set this steak and the reference steak into my dry aging cabinet and let it sit there for 40 days. And here we are, the moment of truth, the moment of unboxing. Oh, that's a long wait, but I'm really confident that this has been worth the wait. Just think about it. What could go wrong? You got whiskey and you got steak. It's like these two are meant to be together, flavor-wise. So now let's carefully unwrap this and take a look under this cloth. The cloth's not sticking to the meat anymore. It's really dried up. Here we go. It's sticking and ooh, that is a good look. There's a little bit of mold at the bottom, but the rest looks really amazing. I'm definitely getting a fragrance of beefiness, but at the same time, I don't know, it's like dark whiskey. There's something there. I can't explain the fragrance. It's just, it smells really good. It smells like a warm cup of tea, but that's weird because it's nowhere near a tea. It's beef and it's whiskey. Yeah.
It does.
It smells like tea, right?
That's weird.
It's totally weird. Now let's get rid of this and let's open up this steak and take a look inside. I'm going to take my large knife and I'm gonna cut the meat clean away from the bones. And there it is, that beautiful red, dry aged meat. Now I'm gonna clean this up. Make sure that I get rid of all the pellicle that sits on this meat. I wanna see a beautiful steak. So that means trimming, until you end up with this, our 40 days dry aged whiskey steak. So now, without further ado, I'm gonna fire up my Kamada Joe Big Joe and we're gonna grill these steaks. Put in a couple of fire starters and light it up. And once your Kamada Joe is up to temperature, you set it up with two positions, one high grill grate and one lower grill grate. Of course, the lowest one is for searing, and we're using the cast iron grill grate. Now let's put our steaks on. I want to get a crust on as big, as thick as I can, because that's just giving us a lot of flavor and a lot of crunch and texture. Once I got a good sear mark on both of my steaks, I'm going to set them to a high precision Close the lid, open the top vent till the first stripe, and open the bottom vent just one finger. And then I'm gonna slowly let the steak come up to temperature. And there we have it, 2 steaks, 40 days dry aged. One is a whiskey dry aged steak and one is the regular dry aged steak for reference. So, which one should I start with? I'm gonna start with the reference this time. There we go, an ordinary dry aged steak, well, ordinary, a really good dry aged steak.
High quality dry aged steak, 40 days, perfect. Perfect, just the way you want it to be.
The steak has a beautiful crust. It's juicy and tender on the inside. It has a good amount of flavor. And overall, I'm really happy with the results. But it's just a 40 days dry aged steak. Now let's try the whiskey one. And I have such high hopes for this. Here we go.
This did exactly what the Pitmaster wanted it to be. It's not about the whiskey, it's about the oak barrel. And that's what comes forth. It's the oak barrel flavor. I love this. This is amazing.
I didn't expect the flavors of the whiskey to do this. It's completely a different steak. It's almost like it's too much whiskey in a steak. I never thought that would happen. I thought we would get a light hint of whiskey on our steaks, but no way. This is really, really intense. And I'm thinking now, we might even be able to taste the difference in different whiskeys on this steak if we would try a whole array of different whiskeys. Just imagine, you could order a steak out of a cabinet with all kinds of whiskey. This is really good. This is something else. And did you know that people can do this at home? You don't need a dry aging cabinet like I have. You can just put a tray, load it with salt, put a rib rack on, put your roast on, and then just sprinkle it with whiskey. Of course, a little bit of cheesecloth, sprinkle it again, and just stick it in your regular fridge. Just make sure you don't have anything else in there that's just gonna, like no salami or things like that. Nothing. Just in your beer fridge. Put it there. That's a safe place.
Comment down below if you have a beer fridge at home. I want to know.
Be a real man.
And this is new to me, man.
You don't have a beer fridge?
Come on, I have a small apartment. This is new for me. Comment down below. I want to know about beer fridges.
I'm gonna get you a beer fridge.
All right. So, if you saw this video and you thought, hey, cool man, and let's talk about beer fridge, comment down below. I want to thank all the patrons and the YouTube members. And if you want to do this, check out the website. I already said all thanks to the patrons and the YouTube members, right? So the only thing now left to do is click this video. And hope to see you guys next time. Until then,
Eetsmakelijk!
and keep on buying beer fridges. Beer fridges?
Grilling!